Hey friends, I'm Mel. Welcome to my kitchen if this is your first time here, and a big welcome back to all of our well-seasoned friends. I don't know about you guys, but I am burnt out on eating party foods, and I am worn out from cooking them. It's turned cold now, and I am ready for some classic, cozy comfort food, all made in the Crockpot. I'm talking about classic chicken soups, cheesy beef and pasta, and of course, we'll have something covered with gravy. So grab your blanket and get cozy, and let me serve it up tonight, and you can make it for your family next week. Today, I'm taking advantage of things that I have in my pantry that I haven't used, things I've opened and not finished in the fridge, freezer, and the cabinets, and we're gonna make a creamy Italian chicken noodle soup. Best of all, we're gonna make it in the crock pot. I'm using my 4-quart oval crock pot, and I'm placing 2 smallish size chicken breasts down in here. If you have a large chicken breast, that's gonna be plenty for this recipe. Next, I'm gonna pour in 4 cups of chicken broth. And I absolutely love these chicken broth bases. I will share these every chance I get. I love using these broth bases. This one is actually a powder. You just mix it with really hot water to make your broth. It comes in chicken, veggie, beef, lots of different flavors. You can also buy this in a paste that you keep refrigerated. Then we are going to use some roasted red bell peppers. I've got some mild ones. These are going to give a really nice boost of flavor and texture to our soup. I'm going to give these just a little bit of a dice before I put them in my crock pot. I'm using about yay much of these, probably a half of a cup. Now for our seasonings, I'm going to add in a nice little teaspoon, maybe a little extra of minced garlic. Going to use a teaspoon of parsley flakes, a nice heaping teaspoon of Italian seasoning. We're going to use about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and let's knock it down to about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. I'm just going to give this a good stir to kind of get everything combined. And I forgot to mention, you could use chicken thighs if you prefer those. Actually, if you want a vegetarian version of this, you can leave out the meat altogether and just use like a vegetable broth. I'm going to put my lid on this, and I'm going to cook mine on high for about 3 to 4 hours. You could definitely cook it on low 4 to 6 hours if you need to. I've been cooking away about 3 hours. This is very brothy because we don't have anything in it yet, but I am just going to be very careful. And I'm just going to use my little mix and chop to kind of shred up my chicken inside the crock pot. Easy peasy. Now is where our soup is really going to come together. I had really just a swaller of heavy whipping cream left in the refrigerator. So I'm going to use that. Then I'm just going to use regular milk to bring it up to about 3/4 of a cup. You could use a light cream if you wanted to lighten this up a little bit. Then I'm just going to put in about a tablespoon of cornstarch. We're going to get this whisked up really good. Then I'm just going to pour that right into the crock pot with my soup. This is going to thicken it up and give it our creamy taste. Pulled out a little bit of spinach from the fridge, and I'm just gonna cut it up a little bit so I don't have big pieces. It's gonna wilt down anyway, but I just kind of have got to where in soups, I prefer it to be even in smaller pieces. I'm gonna start with probably a little over a cup. I think that'll do it. I've also got some shredded Parmesan cheese, and I'm going to sprinkle in 1/3 of a cup of that. A little more. Now for the noodles. I had 8 ounces of some penne pasta that I just had not gotten all used up. So I'm just going to dump that right into my crock pot. It's dry. I didn't cook it on top of the stove. Now, if you want to, you can cook it separately and put it in, but I have all this liquid here, and that is why this is great. You don't have to mess up another pot for anything. Get everything all stirred together. Then I'm going to put the lid back on this, and I'm going to let it cook on high for at least 15 to 20 more minutes. Give it long enough for the pasta to get done. You want to be careful not to overcook your pasta, and it will soak up quite a bit of this liquid, so you want to turn it off as soon as it gets about al dente. This little chicken noodle soup is absolutely delicious. It is creamy, but it's still light and pretty healthy depending on what kind of cream base you put in it. Full of some spinach, and the peppers give it so much flavor. Not spicy, just flavorful and delicious. Warmed us up. I had a loaf of sourdough in the freezer that I got from my wild grain order. I baked it up to go along with it, and it just hit the spot. It was perfect on the side. Every wild grain item bakes in 25 minutes or less right from frozen. You don't have to thaw anything out, so you can enjoy homemade, fresh baked quality in no time at all without all the work. Or if you're like me, you won't have any more failed attempts at homemade bread baking. It's so much prettier than what I've ever attempted or even come close to making. The outside is totally crispy like you like. The inside is soft and light. Put a little bit of that French butter on it too. Those are good. If you're not familiar with wild grain, it's the first ever bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, fresh hand-cut pastas, and artisanal pastries, and it's delivered right to your front door. For me, I feel like I have my own little bakery just right at my fingertips. It's really helped me cut down on food waste and overbuying in the bakery deli at my store. A lot of times that stuff will go bad before we can get it all used up. Like these cranberry pecan rolls from a previous wild grain shipment. I'd made a few of them one morning around Christmas time for me and Patrick, and now just this week we enjoyed the last of them all freshly baked up. And wild grain's clean ingredients and their slow fermentation process can be a lot easier on your belly, and it offers a lot of health benefits that you just don't find in the supermarket. And tonight, for the first time, we baked up a couple of their chocolate chip cookies. Those things are heavenly. And again, we were able to bake just enough to enjoy a treat without a whole plate of cookies sitting here to tempt us. And you'll never get bored with wild grain because you can customize your box with exactly what you want. And they're always adding new limited time special or seasonal items, so there's plenty to choose from. And let me assure you that the croissants lived up to everything that I hoped they would. Every single item we've eaten has been delicious and bakery quality. That's because Wild Grain partners with small bakers and pasta makers across the country to keep the traditions of artisanal baking and nutritious food alive. Plus, Wild Grain donates 4 meals to the Greater Boston Food Bank for every new member that joins. If you want to try Wild Grain, head to the description box, click my link and use code MOMMAMAIL. You're going to get $30 off your first box, plus you're going to get free croissants in every single box forever. I have all the details down below. You don't want to miss free croissants for life and $30 off your first box. It's code MOMMAMAIL, and thank you so much, Wild Grain, for sponsoring today's video and this incredible offer for my viewers. Today I'm starting a Crockpot meal. I'm browning up a pound of ground beef in my little Ninja slow cooker possible thing. And then I have all the ingredients just scavenged in bags from my fridge and freezer to put together a Rotel pasta. Again, this is just a pound of some lean ground beef, and I will go in here with a paper towel here in just a minute and get up any of the excess grease. You really don't want any grease left in this dish at all. I've went ahead and cut off my saute function. My meat is all good and done, and let's see what we have over here. This is fudge. Now the next thing I would add to my crock pot is a diced onion, a small diced onion, and some bell pepper. I don't even have an onion. I don't even have any onion frozen by itself in the freezer. What I did have was this bag of Cajun, I don't know how to pronounce that word, mix. It has onions and green bell peppers, but it has some celery in it. We're going to go with it because the other option was peas and carrots and onions. And you can see I've had this in the freezer for quite a while. It's kind of just turned into one solid chunk, but hey, that's okay. We're just going to knock it apart down in here. In the days after Christmas, I love to dig through my pantry and my freezer and use up little bits and pieces of stuff that I have hanging out. I'm going to put in about 2 teaspoons full of minced garlic. I'm also going to crack in some black pepper. Next, I'm going in with 1 can of diced tomatoes with green chilies, otherwise known as Rotel, and I did not drain this. Next on the agenda is this nice big loaf of Velveeta cheese. This is 16 ounces, 1 pound of liquid gold here. Well, I guess it's not liquid yet, but we are going to cube it up and we are going to put it in the crock pot with our ground beef and onion mixture with the tomatoes. And it's going to become a beautiful sauce that here in just a couple of hours, we are going to boil up this nice big bag of medium shells and we're going to stir it into it with a little bit of milk, and we're going to have a creamy taco mac and cheese. After the holidays, we always seem to have some of this loaf of Velveeta hanging out. It's so good. And this little crock pot recipe doesn't take long. It's really the perfect recipe to like put on, if you're taking down a Christmas tree, you can just stick this little sauce part on, go about and decorating and doing all of that stuff. Then in a couple of hours, when you are done and ready to eat, all you have to do is boil your pasta and stir it together. This recipe also called for 8 ounces of just cubed cheddar cheese, which I didn't have. I was just going to stir in some shredded cheddar cheese at the end. But I happened to remember that I had an 8-ounce block of Colby Jack. I had that out in the fridge in the garage, and I think that will be great with this. So I'm going to cube this up. Then I'm going to put all that cheese in there. And let's just give it a little stir to get everything kind of acquainted and combined. It's almost like we're just going to make our little appetizer Velveeta dip. Sometimes I put hamburger meat or sausage in it. Sometimes I just do, Velveeta and Rotel. But it's almost like we're just making that kicked up a little bit, and we're going to turn it into a whole dinner by adding the macaroni. I've got the lid on here, and I'm going to slow cook mine on low for just about 2 hours. I'm going to use an entire 16-ounce package of these medium shells. I'm going to boil them up in this 4 quarts of water, and I'm just going to cook them about 10 minutes. You want them really just at al dente. You definitely don't want to overcook your noodles because they're going to need to stand up to being stirred into that yummy cheese sauce. I'm also just going to slide over here and check on my cheese sauce. Oh yes, that is nice. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a good mix before I even think about bringing my noodles over. Now we're going to drain our pasta. I'm not rinsing this. I just always run cold water down the drain when I'm pouring something really hot down it. Shake all of the water out of these shells, bring them right over here to the crock pot and put them in with our cheese. Give it a really good initial mix. And then I've got about a 1/2 cup of milk here. Gonna start with just 1/4 cup. Just incorporate it in and it will just bring all this creaminess together. pour in the rest of my milk, and if I didn't say so at this point, I have my slow cooker completely turned off. You could just move it over to warm if you want to, but I'm gonna do a little tasting here. Then I'm taking this over to Mama and Papa's house tonight for supper. I sprinkled it with just a little bit of parsley for some color. Let me get a little bit of bite here that has a little bit of everything in it. Look at that. Look how that cheese hides in there. Can you see that? These medium-sized shells, they just hug this cheese and hang on to it. That's amazing. If you wanted to spice this up, you could use taco seasoning. I make a taco mac and cheese all the time, but I didn't want that tonight. You could use red pepper. You could use ground turkey or sausage. You could make this any way that you want to make it. Honey, it is absolutely delicious. Everybody at Mama's house could not get enough of it. And I even think you could throw some more veggies in there if you wanted to. You know, I said the peas and the carrots. I didn't want to use that bag, but honestly, I think it would be really good in here too. It's warm, it's cozy, it's perfect comfort food for those old, cold January days. Today, I'm making a very simple, low ingredient recipe. It is creamy pork chops in the crock pot. This is a cold weather classic favorite. The first thing I'm gonna do is mix up some chicken broth out of this chicken bouillon powder. I get questions about this a lot, and this is simply just a great value Walmart brand. I've used better than bouillon. It's a paste and you keep it in the refrigerator, but it will have instructions on the little package here of how much to mix. This is 1 teaspoon to 1 cup of water. So I'm gonna go ahead and make 2 cups. And you just wanna get it really whisked together good. And I just simply like to keep these on hand and use them for when I just need a cup or 2 of chicken broth, instead of having to keep a bunch of cans of broth or a bunch of cartons and then open them for just a little bit and having them in the fridge. I like to do this. It's pretty inexpensive too when you look at how much you can make out of 1 container of this. I'm gonna mix everything together in my crock pot. This is pretty much dump and go, and this is gonna be 1 can of cream of chicken soup. If you just had cream of mushroom, that would work as well. I just prefer to get all of this part done before I even get my hands dirty opening up my pork chops. Now I'm gonna pour in my chicken broth, and I'm using 2 cups. If you had just a little under, that would probably be okay too. Next, I'm gonna sprinkle in 1 package of dry onion soup mix. This comes in a box with a couple packages in it. That's just a store brand. Lipton is the people that originally made that. And I'm using 1 ounce package. I'm using chicken gravy. It's really fine, but if you have pork gravy, I like to use that. For some reason, I just had chicken. Now I'm just gonna give this all a good little whisk together inside of my crock pot here and get it all stirred up and ready for the chops. I've got my pork chops all dried off here, and I'm just gonna season each side, and I'm actually gonna use some garlic powder, just regular plain garlic powder. Out of habit, I just grabbed a bottle of like a salt, pepper, and garlic blend, but then I happened to think I'm putting in the soup mix and the gravy mix, and all those are pretty salty. So honestly, all we really want is a little bit of some garlic flavor on here. You could hit it with some black pepper too if you want to. I think I'm gonna do that. Then we're just gonna take our chops and get them all down in the crock pot here. We're gonna do our best to get all 4 of them in here underneath this gravy. Pop the lid on there. I'm gonna cook mine on low for about 6 hours, and this is a 4-quart crock pot I'm using. I always get asked when people see my holiday Crockpot videos where I make a whole meal, like 4 or 5 different things in Crockpots. How many Crockpots does this lady have? I have 3. I have this 4-quart one. It's very simple. You just have low, high, and to keep warm. This is my ride or die. I love this one. It's the perfect size. I will always grab for this Crockpot first because it's my favorite. I love the shape of it. I love the size of it. It's easy to handle. It holds pretty much any recipe that I want to make for my family. And its backstory. I got it on vacation at the beach. The condo that we were staying in didn't have a Crockpot. Can you imagine that? I went down to Walmart. This one was like 18 bucks. My intentions was to leave it there for the condo to have a Crockpot, but I loved it so much, I just brought it home. My other 4-quart Crockpot was round, and it had seen better days, so I replaced it with this one. Next up is Old Red. This is a 6-quart Crockpot. It's missing a leg, so I have to keep a piece of cardboard folded up, and I put it under where the leg goes to keep it level. Love this one. Again, it's super simple, not digital, low, high, and warm. The thing I love about this one is you can make, number one, a little bit bigger meals if you want to take a soup or chili or something that you're doubling to a get-together. It also has these little latches right here on each side so that if you want to transport it, like I said, to a potluck or something, it's super safe, won't spill out on you. Last but not least is my Ninja Foodie Possible Cooker. This one is 8.5 quarts. I love it because you can saute and sear in it, slow cook, bake. You can do a bunch of different things. As a matter of fact, it says it replaces 14 cooking appliances. And the only thing I don't like about it is that it is so big. I actually keep the box, put it back in the box, and I keep it stored in my laundry room. So there you have the stories of my Crockpots. I've already put my 3-legged one up, but I do have 3. So if you see me make those Crockpot videos where I show me with more of them, I have borrowed Crockpots from my mom so I could run 4 or 5 at a time for one of those videos, but this is what I got, and I love them all for different reasons. My pork chops are good and done in here. And you know, I didn't put any onions or mushrooms or anything like that in here, but you could definitely do that. My family just prefers them this way. And you'll see this gravy is not very thick. So I've just got a little slurry here of about a tablespoon of cornstarch and a tablespoon of water. And I'm going to pour that right in here, and I have it turned over on high. And really, that wasn't very much. I may mix up another tablespoon of this, and I'm just going to let it sit here for about 20 or 30 more minutes with the lid on, and this slurry will just thicken my gravy right up. You can probably hear over in the background on the stove, I've got some green beans cooking up back there and a little bit of mashed potatoes getting ready to go down too. You can see it's all done back here. I'm going to load this stuff up in the car. My family, like many others this year, did not escape the holidays unscathed. We've had a lot of sickness, so I'm going to take this over to some family members. We're just all pitching in and taking care of each other. And hopefully we'll all be better in just a couple weeks in the new year. I'll let you see it all plated up when we get there. As usual, these creamy pork chops and gravy did not disappoint. They were gobbled up, so cozy, so comforting, and the gravy that they make is absolutely delicious over mashed potatoes. And I also have made this with a thinner pork chop. You don't cook it as long, but I prefer a thinner pork chop, but I'll have to say that these thick ones were by far the family's favorites. And they get so tender, they just come right apart with a fork. Absolutely a family favorite for a reason. Click here for more quick and easy Crockpot meals for these cold winter nights. I'll see you there, friends. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I send you love from my kitchen.